Welcome back to part 2. We're mixing the color wheel, and you can see I've got the primaries finished. And from here, I'm going to mix the secondaries, the colors that are in between the yellow and magenta, magenta and cyan, cyan and yellow. And I think that these colors are going to be red, which will be halfway between yellow and magenta, a green, which is halfway between yellow and blue, and a violet, which is halfway between magenta and cyan. So why don't you watch me put together this inner ring, and then from there you can add your tints and your shades to each one of those. So the first thing we're going to try to do is red, and then we'll fill in these two areas beside it. We'll do green, then the two areas beside it, and then violet last, the two areas beside it. So you can see where I was mixing before, and in each area I would take the pure color and just slowly make it a little bit lighter, and then make it slowly a little bit darker. Here's the yellow tints, the yellow shades, the cyan shades, the cyan tints. So what I'd like for you to do is think of the same way of moving light and dark. We're going to be moving away from magenta towards yellow, and the halfway spot will be red. So let's see if we can mix up a red, and I'm going to mix up enough so that we can use it throughout all of this area, but also go back and forth between the two, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's some more magenta, and I'll put out a little bit more yellow. And I'm not going to worry about the blue for right now. And in this area right here, I'm going to try to mix a red that's about that value right there. So magenta is a really strong pigment, and so I'm not going to use quite as much magenta as I use yellow. And now I'm going to use probably about twice as much yellow as I had magenta, and it may still need more than that. So that amount of yellow and magenta is a little bit too close to yellow to be a red. That's going to be more in this area for the orange. It'll be yellow, orange, red, and red-violet. So I need to add more magenta so I end up looking like this red right here. You can always add more, so I'm just going to add a little bit at a time to try to get that to be a red. It's closer. Still needs a little bit more magenta in it. Now I think we have pretty much what we're looking for. So this will be painted in this middle section. And then I would do a tint and another tint and a shade and another shade to finish off this area. But now that I've established what is the middle between the two, I'm going to go ahead and find the other hues. So it's hues all throughout that middle ring. So the next one will be an orange, and then the one over here will be a red-violet. So when you have an area like this where you've already established, here's that middle, you can separate these colors and you can do the orange, take this over here, and you can do the red-violet. So taking that color, dividing in half, and now I will add more yellow to this one to get an orange. You can see that's almost the same. So this will be my orange. And I'm not mixing it into all of that because I know that I have to move away from the red. Try to strike that balance of a red-violet. I don't want it to look the same as this, so I think it needs just a little bit more red to be that red-violet. A common name might be crimson. So that's going to be for this area right here. So we've got from yellow to magenta figured out. Next we'll go yellow to cyan. We'll go for green. That might be something like that green right there. So we get out just a little more cyan. And yellow. And we'll try to mix up this middle green here. This will be a yellow green, this will be a blue green, so middle of the road green. And I'll mix it right up here. I'll start out with about half and half. So you want to make sure that it's not too yellow or too cyan. So I think that's going to work out pretty well. I'm going to get rid of the clean water here because of the amount of the red that's in there. That may affect some of my mixtures. So I'm going to rinse this out. There's my green. Again, you do your tints and your shades in that area. Divide this in half. And we can add more. Yellow to one side. And I added quite a bit of yellow to it, but you see how weak that color is. It really hasn't changed it very much. There's a difference. But we want it to be halfway in between these two. So that's going to require a lot more yellow. That's better, but still not quite enough. And I think that looks better for the spot between green and yellow. And now a blue-green between the cyan and the green that we had. And I'm remembering that this cyan is a strong color, so I'm going to watch how much I add to it. And I think that'll be a good blue-green. So now I have the primaries of cyan and yellow and the colors in between figured out. While you're working, you should always go ahead and do the tints and the shades while that color is still alive. Now I'll work in this area with the violet. So in both areas I think I'm going to need to have more paint out, so I'll get out more blue and more alizarin crimson, or more magenta. And what's hard about violet is it's the darkest of all of the colors. And so it's kind of hard to see what you have because it's so dark. But you can just test it against the colors that you have. I think that this is pretty close. There's my violet. And I agree that it's hard to see. One of the things that you can do is when you do create a tint, you might be able to see that color stand out a little bit more, and I'll mix that up down here just so you can see what that looks like. So this is the violet with white added in it. And this would be in this area right in here. So I can go ahead and paint that in, because what I want to know is I want to make sure it's not too blue or not too magenta. So I put the tint on there just so I could make sure that I was halfway in between the two. I'll go on to create a blue. The violet and the cyan together will create something like a navy blue, ultramarine blue. So again, I'm going to divide my mixtures, create a little more room down here below. So this is supposed to be my blue. And then I'm going to create my red violet. You can see how that's about halfway in between these two. All right, and this concludes the ring of hues. And while you have your paint live on your palette, you'll do your tints and your shades of each one. All right, good luck with this. Try to get a good balance in between, and we'll take a look at it in class next time.